Welcome to Fusion Tonight. Fusion is a worship talk show produced in the studios of First United Methodist Church in Cedar Falls, Iowa. We're going to laugh, sing, pray, give, and learn together. Now, scream and yell like he's somebody famous. Here's our host, John Cooper.
Welcome to Fusion Tonight. I'm your host, John Cooper. How are we doing tonight? All right. We have such a great show for you tonight. We're shortening up a little bit of our beginning stuff because we want to get right into our main event. I'll spoil it for you. We have the Episcopal priest from St. Luke's Episcopal Church here in Cedar Falls. Elizabeth Poppelwell is here tonight. You know what? I know that was an accident, but it timed out well, so I'm good with it. So we're going to kind of jump right into our open mic prayer time, get into offering, and then we're going to turn over the floor to Elizabeth. So you guys don't have to look at me much tonight, so this is a big win. Big win for the church. However, I have one joke. I heard one joke. I had to share it. It made me laugh. Very dad joke. What do you get when you cross an angry sheep with an angry cow? Two animals in a bad mood. It's funnier when the English guy told it. Anyway, we're going to jump right into our open mic time. And for those of you less familiar, this looks a lot like Joys and Concerns, but instead of me saying a bunch of stuff, we pass around a mic. People raise their hands, they share whatever's on their heart and their mind, and then we are able to talk about it, pray about it, so that we can be about it. So Jenna's going to walk around with the mic. Just raise your hand if you have something you want to share, and then we will give you a chance.
My brother has a basketball tournament this Saturday.
All right. Well, good luck to Elau.
I'm going to an art camp for 6 weeks.
Oh.
Digital.
Digital art camp.
Nice.
I'm going to scream in my pillow and then rage quit about my game.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for sharing.
There was a car crash yesterday between a 14 and 15-year-old girls that go to my school, and one got life flighted to Iowa City and the other one went to Allen. So just prayers for their family.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll be thinking about them.
So, before I went to Holmes Junior High, I was at Lincoln Elementary. And we have this thing that's called, like, Wacky Winterfest. So, back on the 28th of February, it's like, we're at school, everybody in it has a great time, and where people host games inside of a school. And you get to play a lot of them. It's pretty fun.
All right. So that's coming up February 28th at your old elementary school. All right.
My cousin passed away a while ago, but it still affects me sometimes.
No, absolutely. Yes. Grief is everlasting. So continued prayers.
I have a job interview next Wednesday.
All right.
Right, Brad.
All right. Well, good luck to you. Is it a like polo affair, full suit and tie, or?
I'm interviewing for.
I'm going to.
Nope. You're good. You're good. All right.
I'm going to my friend Aubrey's birthday party next weekend.
All right. Awesome. Always a good time. Anyone else?
Class 4.
All right. Well, if that's all, we'll take the prayers. We'll join in a time of prayer. And then, again, for those that haven't been up here, I turn my mic off when we get to the Lord's Prayer. And so it's your chance to say it in your own voice, in your own cadence. And it's always wonderful to hear how unique everyone is in that delivery while still saying the same words. So if you'll please join me in a time of prayer. Gracious and Holy Father, we are so blessed to once again be able to gather in this space as we come to be with one another and to worship you. Lord, we always want to take time to lift up all of the prayers that's on everyone's minds. And we're so fortunate at this church we get to hear from so many of our youth. And it's wonderful to hear a lot of lighthearted and a lot of cheerful things, going to birthday parties and basketball tournaments and getting to go to art camps and cool events like that. We want to celebrate those things. Wacky Winterfest and all the events going on at school. We're thankful for those wonderful times for our kids to learn, to have fun, and to grow. We also want to lift up the harder prayers, the lasting effects of grief when trying to deal with the loss of a loved one and trying to pick up the pieces each day and remembering someone and honoring someone, but missing their presence among us. Lord, we also want to pray for job interviews and opportunities that are in front of us. We want to pray for those that might be battling illness or sickness or uncertainty in their personal lives. We want to pray for the prayers not said aloud. So many of us are going through so many untold situations, and sometimes we're not quite ready to share those in a public setting, but we know that you hear those prayers, you see those needs, you feel what we feel. And we just ask that whether those prayers have been shared out loud, whether those prayers are still a little too personal or still too close, you put your hand on our shoulders, you place your hand on our hearts, you let us feel your warmth, your presence, your grace. You remind us that we're not alone, and that no matter what we're going through, whether it's a happy thing, a sad thing, a joyful thing, a hopeful thing, or a discouraging thing, that while we don't know what the future holds, we know that you hold our future and that we can always find peace and comfort in that. So let us lay all of those things at your feet. Let us drop the weight here so that we can leave this space, not with our heads down, but with our eyes up, looking forward to everything that awaits us. So Lord, we bring all of this to you in the name of your Son, who taught us to pray. We're now going to go into our offering time. So we don't do a traditional pass the plate. We have 2 giving jars at each doorway. So you can use the offering video, or you can use the time that you're exiting out of the theater, like our kids are now, and you can place money in it at that point. So give as your heart calls you to give, and this is your time for offering.
Many communities in the developing world are challenged by inaccessibility of clean water for drinking, cooking, and personal hygiene. Safe Water International Ministries is a Christian organization which has developed a reusable kit to generate chlorine from available materials. A small amount of chlorine can make a water supply safe for a community. Safe Water International Ministries shares both the water and the words of life, and they are this month's Mission of the Month.
All right, without further ado, it is time for our main event. Again, she is the Episcopal priest at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. She went on a crazy journey, which is maybe evident by some of the props we have up here tonight. So I'm going to leave the floor and let her tell you all about it. Please give it up for Elizabeth Poppelwell.
Thank you. So when Chris reached out for me to speak to you, he didn't say I was going to be on a show. This is pretty uptown. So thank you so much for welcoming me tonight. I was supposed to speak last week, and I apologize. I had a pastoral emergency come up, and so I'm grateful for everybody's grace and flexibility and making time for me to come and visit you this evening. So as John said, I just recently completed the Camino de Santiago. I walked the French way, which begins in the south of France and crosses over the Pyrenees into Spain, and then basically you turn right and you walk almost as far as you can in northern Spain. And so I'm just going to share with you a little bit about that journey tonight. I don't know if I stand here. Can you see that okay? All right. Okay, so I just put a couple of images up there to kind of give you an idea. So every 7 years in the Episcopal Church, a priest, if you've been at the same congregation for that amount of time, you are entitled to a sabbatical. And so for us, it's 3 months that you can plan to be away. And so this year, in 2025, I had a 3-year sabbatical, and so I spent the month of September walking the Camino, and then when I finished the Camino, when I finished hiking, I served as a chaplain for 2 weeks in the city of Santiago with an Anglican church, so we're in full communion with the Church of England, and so I served as a chaplain in one of the churches right there in Santiago, and then the remainder of my sabbatical, I spent family vacation and working on a doctorate thesis, and only the vacation is done. So, but just to give you a little bit of idea, what a pilgrimage is, it's a spiritual journey. There are plenty of people who walk the Camino that it's not a spiritual, they just like walking and challenging themselves physically, but for me it was a spiritual endeavor. I walked the Camino 7 years prior to that in 2018. My first sabbatical. It was something that I had been drawn to, felt like I was called to do that. I wasn't really sure why. I had some friends and colleagues who had walked that before, and so the more I learned about it, the more I really felt drawn into that time. The thing about a Camino or a through hike like this is, everything else has to stay at home. And, we live in a culture that's so busy and so demanding of our time and our resources all of the time. And it's all about producing something, which is really not what God intended in the first place. We've left Egypt. We don't have to earn our grace or things like that. But on the Camino, on a spiritual pilgrimage, you're just walking. And so it's a beautiful time to reflect on what's been going on, to really pay attention to what's in front of you and beside you, and what God might be trying to tell you if you would just stop talking, Elizabeth. So I speak only for myself in these things. So I'm just going to go through some of these images, and if you have questions, I don't know if talk show hosts do that, but we'll mix it up a little bit.
Definitely.
So Saint Jean Pied de Port up in the right or left-hand corner, that is the beginning of the French way. There are lots of different routes that you can take. Some people start in Portugal, some people start in Germany, in Holland. A lot of people start in France. They start from all over in Spain. I decided to walk the French way, which is probably the most common way. It's a 500-mile pilgrimage, so about 750 kilometers, if you will. And so I flew from Minneapolis to Paris, and then I overnighted in Paris, hopped on a train, and took it all the way down to Saint Jean, checked in with the pilgrim's office, got my credential, which is basically your passport. You have to get a stamp in every place that you stay to show that you've walked all that way. And then when you finish, you get a compostela, suitable for framing or the refrigerator door. That first picture in the middle there, that was my morning. That was my beginning morning, and it just felt like it was just the sky. It was just so incredibly beautiful, and it had just been, so beautiful to begin with. The which is right here, you can see that it's got also a pink ribbon on it. This is just my blue ribbon that's left over it. Our daughter-in-law, Katie, was expecting their first child, unbeknownst to me when I started planning. And so I had a blue and a pink ribbon because we didn't know the gender of the baby. And so midway through, I got rid of the pink one, and we have a grandson.
All right.
So that's what that is. This is my pack. It weighs about 18 pounds. That is too much. If you are planning to walk the Camino, you should only carry 10% of your body weight. This is my second Camino, and I still managed to overpack, which is one of the lessons that we'll get to later. But I carried everything I have. I had 2 pairs of pants, 3 pairs of socks, 2 short sleeve shirts, 2 long sleeve shirts, a shirt to sleep in. My sleeping bag is in there. My toiletries are in there. Obviously, I needed a pair of shoes to wear when I took my boots off. I literally walked through the soles of my boots, so I did not bring them home. Yeah, so pretty much, literally everything, including my poles. I have a puff jacket in there because by the time you finish in late September, early October, the weather has changed significantly. Sunscreen, all of it. And so the first day, you start in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port at the bottom of the Pyrenees, and you have to go over the Pyrenees, which is as hard as it sounds. But along the way, like there's a food truck, you meet horses that you're sharing the road with. And this last one with the grate across the road there, what does that remind you of? Like a cattle guard?
Cattle guard.
Yeah. Okay, that's the border. That's the border. On this side is France, on that side is Spain.
Oh, okay.
There's no one there. I'm just going to leave that there. Next, let's go into the next one.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, there's the food truck again. It was really important because the first time I walked, he had no more food by the time I got up there. But again, you can see some of the mountains of the Pyrenees. They're absolutely gorgeous. It's just a beast of a day. It's about an 18-mile day if you go up and all the way over. So we can go on to the next one. These are just some different albergues, so that's like a hostel. And so you have to be a registered pilgrim, and that's indicated by having your conch shell there. Or it's not a conch shell, just by having your shell there. And then you have your passport, your credential. And so when you have that, it enables you to sleep in the lap of luxury. Sometimes you get a twin bed. Most often you get a double or a bunk bed. If you are lucky, you get the bottom of the bunk. If you are not so lucky, you get the top. But you can see there's different configurations. Some are very small. You have 3 to a room. You can see in the top left-hand corner, there was 20 rows of bunk beds. So you get to know your neighbors pretty carefully, pretty closely. But sometimes there's a unique story in some of the albergues. So this one that's over here to my left, you can see it's a little dark, but there's a rack of wine on the right. And you can see like there's a passageway up, but then the stairs stop. So I was staying in this small town, Castro Harris, and found this albergue called Ultrea, which means forward. It's a spiritual word, moving forward in our faith. And so when I checked in, they said, well, we have a wine tour tonight.
Yahoo.
And I thought, oh, well, that sounds like fun, but kind of out of space. He says, well, we found that we have access, there's a tunnel that leads up to the old castle that's up on the hill. It was an escape route. And I thought, well, this is just a great story. So about 8 o'clock at night, anybody that was staying there could go down into the basement, and the owner of the albergue let us down there, a different set of stairs. And he let us down through different rooms and everything else, and you could see on one way, going this way, that you could see where there was more of the tunnel coming down. And then some owner had converted it into a wine cellar at some point. But the reason for the stairs that are coming, that this part of it sat underneath the road to the house on the other side. And because it was an escape route, it could also be a route that, if it was discovered, the invading army could come this way. So they had created this route that there were winding tunnels and everything, and you would come rushing down the stairs. Only halfway down, you would run out of stairs. And the invading army would just fall, which, I don't know, I found that pretty clever. But you can see some are very modern, and some, like the one up in the right-hand side, the albergue. I gave that roof a lot of thought that night, just praying that all of those little antique boards would stay upright and doing the job that they were created to do. But you can stay, some people stay in hotels, some people stay in an apartment or whatever. I decided I just stayed in albergues. They're pretty reasonable. It's about 15 euros a night. You can get dinner or breakfast there usually for another 10 or 15 euros. I mean, the downside is that you have to sleep in a crowd. And yes, people do snore and other bodily functions in the middle of the night. You have to share a bathroom, so it's not unusual to have maybe one bathroom for women and one bathroom for men, and that would have also the shower and the toilet and the sink. So it was an adventure, but it was always worth it. So let's go to the next one. This is just some of the types of food that you would get at breakfast. So usually like a café con leche, a piece of fruit, maybe a little sweet. A lot of times tomatoes and toast is a big thing in Spain. And then like if you would stop for second breakfast, because when you get up, I would typically leave the albergue about 7, and then you walk for a couple of miles and you're already hungry, so then you stop for a bigger breakfast, which is usually bacon and eggs and other things like that. So we can go on to the next slide. But lunch and dinner are pretty fabulous. So you can see there's beef and paella and soup, and that's octopus over there. And then they have the craziest, best desserts. A lot of ice cream, a lot of chocolate. And the lovely thing about walking 500 miles is you can eat anything you want. So typically you would eat first breakfast before you left the albergue, you would eat second breakfast, then you would have lunch, then you would have a snack, and then you would stop for dinner, you'd eat 3-course dinner, and then you'd go to bed by 9 o'clock. So you could start all again. All right, can we go to the next one? So I'm jumping around because we only have this much time this evening, but so these are this actually should have been at the end, but you're welcome to Santiago. This is the cathedral, this is the ending point. All of those routes that I told you about, whether it starts in Portugal or other routes through Spain or France or everything, they all end in Santiago. And there's a great big square in front of the cathedral, and there's lines coming from all different directions, and they all come to the middle. And this is where everybody ends their Camino. And so that's the cathedral there. You might have heard of the Botafumeiro, which is do y'all do incense? No, okay. Well, that right there, that big thing is about this big, and it's swung on a rope. You can see it, and the rope hangs from the top. And there are 8 ropes that come down along the side of it, and at the end of the Mass, they have the incense burning, and then it starts to swing. And I'm sorry, I do have a video on it, so if you want to look at my Facebook page, you can check that out, but it does swing. And so it's, we hear it in the Psalms that our incense rises like our prayers. There was a rumor, a myth, that was, centuries old, that they actually did it at the end of Mass because all of the pilgrims smelled so bad. But and then I'm sorry that picture isn't clear, but that's the high altar in the cathedral, and it's really quite intriguing with all of they're not cherubs. I don't know what they are, but there is more gold in that cathedral than anywhere I've ever been. So let's go to the next one. So along the way, you would think, okay, 500 miles, how are you going to find your way? Well, there are yellow arrows. There is the shell over there. I have a block here. And these would be located like on the ground. They'd be on buildings. If you were walking through a city like Burgos or Leon, you would find them on, on the top of buildings, maybe on a street light. It was actually easier to go through the smaller towns than the cities, because when you're walking down a street, you don't know if is the arrow going to be here, and they're not like every 10 feet. It's like every couple of blocks. So you're kind of walking by faith in that moment. But so you just follow those arrows, and on this one, the yellow arrow, you can see that there is a distance on that one. So that one actually says it's 60 kilometers, and it all measures to Santiago. From wherever you are, that's how many more kilometers it is to your destination. Let's go ahead to the next one. So these are just some random shots of things that, so obviously that's me walking. But the brick building, it's really unique to the part of, so Spain is divided up into different regions, and so in Galicia, they have these herreros, and it stores grain. And it's always lifted up off the ground and has tiny little vent holes. And presumably, like, rodents can't get in there, which they get into my house, and I have a door, so I don't really know. But they're all over the place, even in new construction. They all have a herrero. The fellow over to the right is St. James. Santiago is Spanish for St. James, the apostle. And so St. James in Santiago, that is where they presume that the bodily remains of St. James, apostle to Jesus, were found. And so that's how the pilgrimage got started. But you'll see all kinds of different statues to him. You'll notice the dagger. It's supposed to be a cross. And you can see it on this one too. So it is a cross, but it was also the defenders. The defenders of St. James would have their swords built into that shape. Let's go to the next one. You walk through a lot of different terrains on the Camino. You walk through fields and fields of sunflowers. Now, by the time I get there in the fall, it's already starting to harvest and things are drying out. But pilgrims pick the seeds out of the heads of the flowers. And sometimes, like this one, there's a smile. Sometimes there's words written in there. It's really extraordinary and very odd. Like, who has the time to start doing that? But anyway, you'll walk through medieval towns. So there's coats of arms. You go across Rome and bridges galore. And then this big staircase is one of the last big cities that you hit before you get to Santiago. And those are the steps that you have to walk up in order to get to the city, which is a little cruel. After you've walked all day with your pack, you're tired, you just want to find a place to sleep, and everything is up that hill. So let's go to the next one. Some of the other things about the Camino. So the guy up to the on the left, he's offering a waxed stamp, and I found that this was more common my second Camino because they charge for it. So you could pick out the color of the wax and then what kind of stamp you wanted on it, and they would do that. And sometimes they would insert a charm or a ribbon, but otherwise, when you went to get breakfast or have lunch or dinner or the place that you were going to stay, they would just stamp your passport like that. And then when you get to Santiago, then you have to present your passports and show that you've been all of the places that you said you would. The trees down below is a eucalyptus forest, which is outside of Santiago. Eucalyptus is not native to Spain. But it's a fast-growing tree, and it reproduces really quickly. It's used in papers and all kinds of things. And so it's an economic engine, but it's also a bit of a controversy because it takes up a lot of water, and it takes up a lot of space and other resources. So it goes against the natural habitat of Spain. but it does smell good when you walk through it. Sometimes we would walk on roads, as you can see in that middle picture, and sometimes we would be in ancient towns, like down below, and then, just through forests and things like that. So we can move on. Okay, and so these are just some other churches that are along the way. Spain is a Catholic country. There is a church in every town, and it has gold in every little town. Church has lots of gold. So this is part of the cathedral. The one in the middle is part of the cathedral in León. And then the one over to the right is actually a 14th century, the remains of a 14th century monastery. Saint Anton, and it's one of those hauntingly beautiful places to go and just sit and be quiet, and birds fly around in there and everything else. We can go to the next one. I know I'm running on time here. The one on the right-hand side, Santiago is where you end, but you can also go to the end of the earth, Finisterre, which is end of the earth in Spanish, for the 0 mile marker. And so it was so foggy the day that I went that you couldn't even see the ocean behind me, and you couldn't see there's a lighthouse like 20 yards behind me. The fog was so thick. But so anyway, it was fun to go there. And then the church that I'm standing in front of, the name of that church is San Fez, and it's a Catholic church that they've given to the Anglican Communion to use for English services from the Episcopal Church. So all of the services that I did were in English. We used our prayer book, but we got to be right there. So I think the next one, there we go. So my friend KK, met me the last week. She walked the last 5 days. She had wanted to walk the Camino, but she didn't have 30 days. So we met in Syria, and so she walked the last 5 days. And the Catholic Church has deemed that that's the shortest amount of time that you can walk. It's 100 kilometers. So you can get your Compostela, which she did, and then well, that's just the cathedral at night. It's truly extraordinary. Yeah, and so when we would do our Episcopal services off to the side, it was a little more intimate. Let's just say that. So I think that's it on slides, and then I think the next ones are some lessons that I've learned along the way. My husband absolutely has no interest in ever walking the Camino. My husband has very little interest in walking past the mailbox. Okay. A lot of people say, well, I'd love to walk, but my knees are bad, or I don't have that much time. And I get that. But I think that there are lessons that we learn along the way that actually help us on our own journey, especially on our journey with Jesus. Because the time that we're living in does feel, well, not just a little uncertain, but a lot. And every day on the Camino, you knew where you were starting, and you knew the name of the town that you were going to go to, but you really weren't sure what it was going to look like, what kind of landscape, what kind of terrain, what was the temperature going to be, anything like that. And so I think I just started to embrace these, like, what are the truths of doing a spiritual pilgrimage like this? And the first thing is you can do hard things, which is true for all of us. I think we can do hard things, and we can embrace uncertainty and the unknown, and we can be fully present. Like, be fully present. On this particular Camino, I walked by myself, except for the last 5 days. When I walked the first time, I walked with a good friend of mine. But this time it was different because it was just me, and I mean, you meet a lot of great people along the way. But because I didn't feel like I needed to be the first one out of the albergue in the morning, back to those one bathroom, one sink. I wasn't going to get up at 4:30. So I would just sit in my bunk and I would pray the daily office, so morning prayer. And in our tradition, Psalm 95 is a frequent part of that. And the last verse of Psalm 95 is, "Oh, that today you would hearken to his voice." And so that became my walking mantra, like, "Oh, that today, Lord, I will hearken to your voice." That means like I will be fully present. I will pay attention to the people that you put on my path and to the creation that I'm walking in, to what you might be trying to say to me. One of the other lessons is that the journey is changed by the people that you meet. When I began, I didn't have a real reason why I was walking. I just knew when I finished the first one that I was going to walk it again. But I learned pretty early on, "Oh, that today you would hearken to your voice," that there's a lot of people that really just need to know that they're loved. It was a spiritual journey for me, but not everybody felt that. They felt that the church had abandoned them or actually had done trauma to them. They couldn't abide by all of the rules, all of the things why they weren't worthy. And they were confusing the church with God. And so I had amazing conversations, and I'm just going to grab this water bottle because this was actually the instigator of many of the conversations. And so this is the water bottle that I took, and the sticker says, "God made you fabulous." And there was one particular time, it was actually the second night that I was on the Camino, and I was speaking with a woman from South Korea, and thankfully she spoke English because I don't speak South Korean. But she was having a hard time, and she was struggling with some of the things that I've just shared with you. And I just turned my water bottle, and I put it in front of you, and she read it. And I said, "That's true for you, too." And she just started weeping. And she said, "No one has ever told me that." And I just wonder, in our everyday lives, how many people just need to know, I didn't preach the gospel to her, I didn't break open a Bible, I just said that God thinks you're fabulous. You can do this. So you're changed by the people that you meet. One of the questions, is it worth the wait? I mentioned that my backpack is too heavy. I'm an overpacker. I always pack a what if. Until she recently died, I always packed shoes in case the Queen would invite me to tea. It makes no sense, some of the things that we're carrying around. And that's true, because we're all carrying something, whether it's an anger, a resentment, a hurt, a broken dream, whatever it is it worth the wait to keep carrying that? Because we have a Savior that says, "Take my yoke upon you, for my burden is light." It's good to look back. My first Camino, people say, "Don't look back, don't look behind you." And it's like you're missing the sunrise. Or you're missing to say, "I just climbed that beast of a hill. I can do hard things." So it's okay, let's look back and see what you've done. To live simply. There is no more simple life than living in a bunk bed with 30 other people. Enjoy life's pleasures. The food that we ate, we often walked through those crops when we got there. So it was just simple, good food. Everyone must walk their own Camino. So the first time I walked, my walking partner was 15 years younger than I am. She is wildly creative. She was also a fitness instructor. That first day, walking up that beast of the hill, I had trained, I had practiced, and she was walking along like it was walk in the park, and I'm back here going, and I thought, okay, you can walk 100 steps. I couldn't walk 100 steps. I said, okay, walk 20 steps. I walked 5 steps, and I would stop. And then some guy would be whistling past me. I had to walk my own Camino. I had to walk at my own pace. Some people send their packs on. Some people stay in a hotel. Some people walk the last 5 days. Everybody has to walk their own journey. And then the last one is to practice coming home. I don't know if you've ever been on a retreat or you've had a big moment or something, and you have to learn how to re-enter and bring what you've experienced home with you, because everybody at home has not had that experience. And so you have to discern for yourself, what do I hang on to? What do I let go of? What do I want to keep about my former life, and what needs to go away? And I please notice that the word is practice. It's practice, it's not perfection. As we do these things over and over and over again, just like we say our prayers. It's like we say the Lord's Prayer. We worship, we receive communion, we do it over and over and over again. And sometimes, if we're lucky, the practice masters us. Thanks so much for inviting me this evening, and it's been a delight to be with you and to share a little bit of my own experience. And I'll give the mic back to you.
Give it up for Elizabeth. Right in the middle, right in the middle. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing. So, El Camino de Santiago, you had café con leche, which is coffee with milk.
Yes.
I learned that in Guatemala.
Yes.
So it's fun. It's fun speaking a different language. But ultimately, this whole trek is about going to the resting place of St. James. And can you just tell me how many people come from all over that you meet in the middle of this great experience?
Yeah, so this year, or in 2025, they anticipated having about 500,000 people make that journey.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and those are just the registered pilgrims. So it started in the 9th century, so it's been going on for quite a while. It fell out of favor for a while, and now it's back. And people walk for different times too.
Yeah, and how long in total were you walking to go from point A to the end?
So I started on August 29th, and I finished on October 1st, and I took a rest day in there. So I would walk usually about 15 miles. Some days I would walk 18, some days maybe 14 or 13, but on the average it would be 15 miles a day.
So like RAGBRAI, but with less partying, right? Like,
Right,
just like,
right,
really.
right. There was no sag wagon. I've never been on RAGBRAI, but
I think what
Yeah.
you did is a little more impressive. I think RAGBRAI is cool, but I think maybe what you did was more impressive. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's just a wonderful experience. I would invite anybody that's here. She has a lot of cool mementos. I'm sure she'd love to talk about them and share. And just again, thank you so much.
Thanks
really
so much for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, and God thinks you're fabulous too.
God loves you because of, not in spite of. Yes. All right. Well, we have gathered. I hope we have grown, and now it's time for us to go be Christ for one another together. We'll see you next time.